Let's start our review session. I do not want provide a lot of data because I feel like it's unfair for students who came to class every time. So that's why I just want review the beginning of the class. So let's start with the concept. The security is most commonly associated with the elevation of threat to cherish the value left unchecked, threaten the survival of particular referent objective in the near future. So the concept of security and survival is different. Survival is existential condition, but security is the ability to pursue cherished political and social ambitions. So that's the main difference between the two. The starting point actually is different. The security adds an accumulation of material power. So the more power actors can accumulate, the more secure they will be. And security is also relationship concept between different actors rather than a commodity. So either absence of something threatening or involving phenomena that are enabling and making things possible. So when you talk about like concept between the security and survival, you should talk about this. So survival is existential condition, but security is further than this. And when we talk about security and who we are talking about, so we have different kinds of security. So we have national security, regime security, national interest, human security, and so on and so on. And I said human security is not a concern with weapons, but it is a concern with human dignity. So when we talk about like environment change, that's actually human dignity. And military security is concerned with interplay with the armed offensive and defensive capability of states and states' perception of each other's intention. When we talk about political security, focused on organizational stability of state, system of government, and ideology. When we talk about uh, the we also talk about like economic security, social security, environmental security. When we talk about economic security, it's finance. It talks about like resources and finance. When we talk about social security, it's centered on sustainability and the evolution of traditional patterns of language, culture, and religious and national identity and custom. Environmental security is about what we have actually learned, but I'm not gonna ask that. And we have learned realism. There are commonality of realist traditions. So major analysis is state, and they are interested in power and security. And they look at intentional style as pessimistic, so that means it's hard to cooperate. And when we look at power, it's not about soft power, it's about hard power. Hard power is material capability. So when we talk about the country is powerful, that means it has more land, more resources, economy power, population, or large size of the land, kind of things. And then they also look at the society as zero-sum game. So zero-sum game means my gain is your loss is my gain. So they do not concern of we talked about relative gains and absolute gain. So the liberalists may care about absolute gain. So they are fine as long as they gain. But realist talks about relative gain. So it doesn't really matter how much they have, but they focus later on the how many things the other uh, or four has than me. So that's the zero-sum game. And I don't want to go through all of it, but classical realism emphasizes the human nature, right? So for classical realism, why there's anarchy? It's because absence of central government, and why there's war because there is aggressive leaders and domestic political system that gives greedy parochial groups that opportunity to pursue self-surviving. The main goal is survival, and then how can we achieve peace? To have more power. And neoliberalism, its basic idea is international structure rather than uh, human human nature, right? And they criticize classical realism because they think that we can't explain the domestic political arrangement is different, but why state act in a similar way. So they focus on balance of power and why there is war because of anarchy and why war because international structure. So they focus on distributional power, right? So they saying that like multipolar is most dangerous, bipolar situation is two great powers, and unipolar is one great power. And the main goal is security, and how can we achieve peace to have more power? And they focus on anarchical condition. And structural realism can be divided into two, defensive and offensive. And um, the main difference is it encourages states to maximize their security or to maximize power and influence. So if you choose security, it's defensive, and maximize your power, offensive. Whether conquest and expansion pays or not, if conquest pays, then it's defensive. If conquest doesn't pay, it's offensive. And then defensive realism's main idea is security. So they think that security is plentiful, so you don't have to fight for against that much. And main goal is security. And so they think the conquest pays because modern military technology and current geographic boundaries between states makes conquest more difficult. And most of states will support the state of war, so you don't have to fight for against the country, and war is rare. But the offensive realism thinks that security is scarce. That's why states seek to maximize their power. It's same as classical realism, right? And war occur because of distribution of power in international society, and then that's why they have to maximize their power. And the you have to achieve the hegemon. And stairs, they think the status quo powers are rare. That's the difference. And we talked about like power transitional realism, this is Ogansky's argument, right? And power transitional realism argues that war between major worlds is at least likely when international system is dominated by a single state and when there is absence of rising challenger being for system leadership. But there is always rising power. So if there is a rising power, then there will be a war, and then there will be power transition. And power transition realism depicts the course of human history as a successive rise and fall of the power. So if there is peak, then there's always the uh, down. So that's kind of history, right? So that's the vicious circle like this. And then you have to, we talked about this discussions, five, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 discussions, and you should answer all of them. So that's how you can answer the final exam. And then we talked about democratic peace theory, and democratic peace theory's main argument is liberal states do not fight wars against other liberal states because of their liberalism. And Doyle talked about three different things. The first, Republic Constitution. The division of power in democratic states, which produce checks and balance, and the electoral cycle, which makes liberal leadership cautious and prone to avoid risks. And collective security arrangement and civil hospitability, the liberal states tend to trust other liberal states and to expect to resolve through discussion and compromise. So that means they could find other ways to solve the problem. And collective security arrangement means that means like this. So let's say a state A wants you to wage a war against state B, and if state B is also democracy, then the signal is sincere that A state sent, and B will get the signal, and then the A needed to get a process to approve the people from people. That's the how democracy works. And the B is the same. So during those times, it actually takes some time. That's the collective security arrangement. And neoliberal institutionalism. The neoliberal institution is different from other kinds of liberalism. They think that the anarchy is true, and the most important actors in international society is they, even though they accept that basic assumption. They emphasize the role of international institutions. So they think that yes, the anarchy is the absence of government. So what can we do is we should solve the problem. How we solve the problem? By establishing international institutions in mitigating conflict. So international institutions can provide information and they can punish the defector. So ability of institutions like the UN to define state roles and act as arbitrators in state disputes. While institutions cannot absolve anarchy, they can change the character of international environment, influencing state preference and state behavior. So once cooperation was institutionalized, state would hesitate to abandon it for fear of what led ahead. So in the anarchy, it's hard to solve the problem because of absence of government. And if international institution can play a role like that, then you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about anarchy. That's how about neoliberal institutionalism. Well, I don't want to explain go deep because I feel like I try to prepare a review session and I make a questions first actually, and I realized it's all written in my PPT file, so I felt like it's unfair to review to all of it. But I just wanted to emphasize the small things. So the very first a few weeks, but there's not much. I know you might be angry, but if you have a slide of my slide, then you don't have to worry about it. So good luck. I will see you on December 19th.